What is up, you guys? Diggerdan here, coming at you with another video. Today, I am reviewing Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End. So without further ado, let's dig into it. Now, for those of you who haven't read Arthur C. Clarke or don't know who he is, he's huge in the sci-fi genre. And I haven't read any Arthur C. Clarke until this point, so I was excited to dig into it, especially when I saw how small this book is. It's only 212 pages, so before I read it, I was thinking I'd fly through it. Which was not the case. Spoiler alert. But if you look at his kind of catalog, this longer column is all of his fiction, and then this smaller column here is all of his nonfiction. So from my understanding, he was actually like a researcher, and he was like into the nitty-gritty of science, and he actually understood it. A space nerd, if you will. So I was really excited to dig into this one. I'm like, okay, cool, like deep science fiction. Let's see how this goes. Especially after I read the back of the book and realizing that it's a first contact book, like first alien contact with Earth, I thought that'd be kind of a slam dunk. Like, that'd be pretty cool. I did go a little hesitantly into the book, knowing in the back of my head it was written in 1953, and I have a really bad track record of liking older books, like Dracula. I did not care for Dracula. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is another old one I did not like. So just to name a couple of examples. So except some of those are much older books. Like 20,000 Leagues was written in the 1800s. So that was 19th century, you know? So I know there's a big time jump, but even this is still 70 years old. This is older than my grandparents, to put that into perspective. So yeah, I was a little hesitant, but I was still excited knowing that it's science fiction, right? And knowing that it's Arthur C. Clarke. So I've only really heard awesome, good things about Arthur C. Clarke and about Childhood's End specifically. I mean, not spoiler stuff, but people saying that Childhood's End is one of his best works. I was really excited. But spoiler alert, I didn't like the book. It was very slow, and I had to take a lot of breaks. I would read 10, 15 pages, and then I would get bored, and then I'd have to put the book down, and then literally go do chores. I would have to go fold some laundry, go do dishes, and then after I'm done with that task, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm ready to go back reading. And then the cycle would continue. I'd read another 10, 15 pages, and I have to go do something else. So yeah, this is not a good time. I thought I would knock this book out in a couple days. I think it literally took me 4 or 5 days to read this book, which is not good. So yeah, take that with what you will. But overall, my rating for the book was 4.14 out of 10, which isn't great, obviously. That's actively disliking it. I like to think 5 is like true neutral. Anything over 5 is actively liking and recommending, and anything under 5 is actively not recommending and discouraging even. So yeah, and now if you're curious how I get my rating, 4.14, that's very specific. I have 5 categories I rate, and I like to rate each of those out of 10, and then I take the average out of those 5 categories to get my overall rating. So without further ado, I want to jump into spoilers. So if you do not want spoilers for this book, I would recommend go reading it, and then maybe click back on this video and watch it with me after. But if you don't care about spoilers, or if you watched this years ago, or read this, years ago, or even recently, let's talk about it together. So the first category I like to rate is emotional impact, and I rated emotional impact 3.5 out of 10. Like I said, I was bored with this book a lot, so I wanted to like it, but by the end I just didn't. I'm like, great, this is over, awesome. Which I am sad to say, because when I'm reading a book, I want to enjoy it, I want to like it, right? Like, it's an entertainment piece if it's fiction, right? So I'm reading this to be entertained, to enjoy it, to be lost in the story, because I personally like escapism when I read. That's one of my big reasons for reading. Is 1, to be entertained, like I said, but 2, to escape into this world, whatever it is, into the story, and now I have to think about real life for a little bit. And this book failed to do that for me. Like I said, I'd rather do chores than go and read this book. So it did the opposite of that for me. But why emotional impact? Why is that so low? Well, like I said, I wanted to like this book, especially when I realized it was first contact alien stories. I don't read enough alien stuff, so I thought that would be cool to get into. Um, but the setup for the story for me wasn't great, even from the prologue itself, or even before the prologue. So the foreword, or the prologue in this case, like kind of set it up for me. I'm like, okay, cool, this is gonna be slam dunk. This is very interesting. Maybe a little dense scientifically because it's Arthur C. Clarke, right? So that might have some prose I have to work through, especially being written in 53. But I still was expecting to at least enjoy it, right? Even a little bit. But then that first few pages just confused me. Which, like, it ends with the human race was no longer alone. That's a cool hook, line, and sinker, right? But everything leading up to that was just question marks, and then they never get answered. But again, keep in mind that couple pages was what was added, I think, in 1990, like 40, 50 years later. So that didn't fit. I didn't like that. But then after that, it's the character. I have to look at this because I already forget. It was the Secretary General of the United Nations. I don't even know what his name is. I'm not even going to try to read it. But he is the only character, at least at that point in the plot, that is communicating with the Overlords, which is the aliens. Which I thought was kind of silly. Like, why not? Yeah, they're up here and they're kind of controlling the world, but it's only through one man that's controlling the whole world. That I was maybe a little hard to buy into. But I'm like, okay, maybe there's a reason for it. And it's explained, but the explanation is that, oh, humanity isn't ready for us yet. If humanity's not ready for you yet, then why appear? I don't know. I understand that's kind of the whole premise of the book. You gotta make humanity ready in bites. And in bites for humanity is generations. So the Overlords are above, in their spaceships, above these, like, the major cities across the world, and they blast out this big radio transmission in perfect English, mind you, basically saying, oh, we're not here to harm you, we're here to help you, and that's it. And then they don't have any big communication with the world aside from this one person in this one role, which of course is in America. So I think that's ironic. And then they don't reveal who they are. Like, the Overlords or the aliens don't reveal what they look like or who they are or why they're there. For another like 50 or 70 or maybe even 100 years. I forget because it was hard for me to be invested. But which causes some upset which is understandable, from some of the human population. I forget what they call themselves. Again, I lost interest. Who just wanted to understand, who thought it was suspicious that the aliens wouldn't reveal themselves, at least show themselves to humans, so humans can know what they look like. They basically were saying, oh, we have a right to know who our masters are, or what our overlords look like, who is controlling the earth, right? Which I can understand. But the overlords came to this agreement where we'll show you in 100 years. And then it's like, okay, great. And then, I don't know. And then there's a time jump. And then they reveal who they are. They look like. But it's to the grandchildren of the people that we were introduced and we kind of not fell in love with, but we understood who they were. And then it cuts. And then I don't know, just all the time jumps really lost it for me. And then even just jumping all the way to the end of the book where the children of humanity are evolved and they their minds transcend themselves. I don't know. That was hard for me to buy into. It could have worked if you had maybe another, I don't know, lot more lore to it. I don't know. It just kind of felt very quick. Or it jumped ahead and it wasn't explained very well. Again, granted, it's only 200 pages in the book. And I probably would have not even finished it if it was longer, like 300 pages. So that's kind of a funny critique for me to say that. I get that. But I don't know. I just don't feel like it was explained well. And just the things, And by the time it was revealed at the end, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. This is stupid. Which again, I don't want to sound uppity and like arrogant, but I just didn't like it, and that is what it is. So yeah, emotional impact 3.5. Characters as a 4. I characters are a little better. Again, I didn't really care for most of the characters. The one character I did like was, I forget his name. I think Jean or John, something like that. But he was the last human alive, which I thought was very interesting. Jan, Jan. Like his whole little thing, like knowing that the Overlords come from a different planet and people aren't. He's like, why aren't people curious where they come from or why they came here, why they left their planet, why they came to our planet, and all those things. So he's the one character I actually was invested in and cared about. But everybody else, I didn't care. Even the Overlords themselves, once they were revealed, and were mingling with humanity, and they were like celebrities, I just didn't care. Like they didn't really grip me. But Jan did, and him being the last human alive, I thought was kind of fitting, because that was also like my last brain cell. It felt like for reading this book. So yeah, overall, didn't really care for the characters. Next is plot. This is a 3.7. It was, like I said, it was semi-interesting towards the end, with Jan going in that whale to go to space, to go to the Overlord's planet. But then it sucks because it turns out it's not actually the Overlord's planet. It's really just an Overlord's outpost on their moon or something like that. I don't even remember. But then also there's a time warp because you're traveling in space at the light of speed. Speed of light, excuse me. So I think it was like, what is it, 40 years was what it was for 4 weeks or something like that, or 50 years. But it's only 4 weeks for him. And then he mingles there, so that actually makes time go even faster. And then when he finally comes back, humanity's wiped out. He's the only human left. But he's still recording things for the Overlords to see what humanity's children have evolved into and what they're doing. So it was a little interesting at the end, but I think that things that actually happen weren't really enough to keep me going, really keep me that interested. And I can't remember if I said this already, but the whole children evolving the way they did, that was hard for me to buy into. I think evolution is going to happen, but I think maybe the way it did was too quick. Like just one day, the children just wake up and they're like telepaths with their mind. And like there's a family's baby that she's like moving things around, like moving the Radler with her mind. And then they like don't need food. The food just like starts disappearing from the freezer. She doesn't get up and goes and get it. Or, like she doesn't use a telepathy to like bring it to her to eat. It just was weird. But I get science fiction can be weird, but it was maybe just a little too weird for me. So yeah. Next is dialogue and prose. This ironically is one of the higher things I rated at a 4.4, excuse me. Because some of the things that it was easy-ish to understand, but it just was hard for me to be invested into it, if that makes sense. But something that this book did a lot of that I did not like is that it told you and didn't show you. It breaks that whole show don't tell rule, which I really don't like. But I guess with how fast-paced this book wanted to move, it made sense. Like you just say things and that's the way it is. Like for example, just saying, "Oh, humanity accepted the Overlords," and then that's it, and you don't actually show like people talking about, "Oh yeah, the Overlords are good for," like I don't know, like I just didn't feel that invested in it just because you told me the outcome. There wasn't really a story for me to follow, if that makes sense. But ironically, it's one of the higher things I rated, which just tells you how much I dislike the other things. And then the highest thing I did rate, which I actually did slightly enjoy, was the world building itself. I rated that as a 5.1. Just kind of the advancements that the Overlords put onto Earth was interesting. Like how they advanced, really just using automation, like with robots. So humanity didn't really have to work anymore. It's kind of like a communist or the socialist utopia, where It's like, if you do anything, you do it for the betterment of yourself and for the betterment of your community, but you don't really have to do anything. So I thought that was kind of interesting exploring that a little bit. But kind of like I already mentioned, when Jan went on the spaceship and kind of traveled in space, that was interesting. And then when he actually landed, and then just the Overlords interacting with him, and it seemed like they didn't really speak English, and so like at least at the beginning, so kind of that language barrier was interesting because he didn't even think about that. Like I didn't even think about that as a reader either, just because you assume that they probably all speak English. But then it's explained, oh no, only the Overlords that came to Earth for the purpose of prepping Earth or prepping humanity for their evolution were the ones that were exploring or like understanding the human language, or excuse me, understanding English. So then it's funny that the one Overlord or one alien that can understand him is an alien that's fascinated with humanity, you know. So that was interesting a little bit, but again, it's a little too late, you know, or I just didn't care. So I know, very doom and gloom book review, and I'm sorry, but if you liked Arthur C. Clarke and you like this book, let me know in the comments why you liked it. Tell me why I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. I don't know. It's my own opinion though, so don't come at me too hard. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit like down below. Heck, even if you disliked it, go ahead and dislike. That's fine with me too. It lets me know what you guys like and don't like about my stuff, you know. So yeah, if you guys want to see more from me, Diggerdan, please hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification icon so you guys know when I upload each and every single time. And I will catch you fools in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.